Hey, buddy. We got a new blood running the board, so bear with us for a second. He's doing his level best. It's his first phone call.
We got it.
Cherry.
We got it.
Can you at least hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes. No need to put my photo up there.
Perfect.
That you're lucky. You're so lucky.
Yeah, Lloyd's not behind the board, so
You're good.
You caught a break. But all right, Shay. Well, we'll get started with the biggest question when it comes to LSU football recruiting, and it's this news about Jahkeem Stewart and his transfer to Edna Carr, and just kind of what that means for him, for his recruiting, the fight for him on the recruiting trail, but for LSU as well. What's the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big news is leaving St. Aug and doing so just a couple days prior to the season starting. I think there was a fear from fans who want him at LSU that he would end up at IMG. That wasn't going to work out. We found out pretty quickly. And then kind of behind the scenes, obviously Jahkeem's camp, but with the help of others, made calls and kind of got a feel for where he could get into school. And that's really what's paramount here, first and foremost, is being in a classroom, not falling behind, because he still is making this move. You don't leave St. Aug, and he left St. Aug because they don't reclassify there. And his goal was to reclassify. And for those that don't know what that means, it's essentially skipping what would be your senior year and enrolling a year early. Now, basketball players will do this. Quarterbacks will do this a good bit. But we don't see it a lot from other positions. And I think what makes it a bit more unique, but also kind of interesting to follow how this is going to play out, is the great news is that he's at Edna Carr. There is nobody who's got better ties to Edna Carr than Frank Wilson in the college coaching world right now. I would make a strong argument to that. And on top of that, he's still in New Orleans, right? He didn't go to IMG. He didn't go out of state somewhere to where you kind of don't have that ability to get him onto campus as much as you'd like, or kind of keep an eye on how things are going with his recruitment, which you can do when he's in New Orleans. Now, at the same time, I would say that unfortunately, you're looking at a situation where right now he's ineligible to play. And I'm not certain there's any expectation that that's going to change at Edna Carr. There's been a lot of questions. Can he practice? Can he do this, that, and the other? But the reality is, live game reps, he won't be able to play. Now, let's say, and this is what they're working through right now, credit hour-wise, it's hard-pressed to think he'd be ready to get out in December, that skipping a whole year and 6 months and doing it sort of here at the end is a stretch. But even if he reclassifies, which is why you would leave St. Aug, think about now, that means he would, at this point, sit out his junior year, skip his senior year, and he was already ruled ineligible as a freshman getting to St. Aug. So you're talking about a guy who would have only played 1 year of high school football, being a sophomore year, and then would have sat a whole year before enrolling in college. And I know people say, well, kids reclassify all the time. Yeah, they do. But again, let's double back. Quarterbacks do it. A guy like Colin Hurley is the guy who reclassified. He's young for his age, reclassified at a younger age. He still played that final year. Yes, he only played 3 years of high school football instead of 4, but he was playing football all the way up until he left to enroll at LSU. With Jahkeem Stewart now, he had sat a whole year, played last year, and now will sit a whole nother year, and then presumably
skip a year,
try to reclassify, which would be erasing a senior year. So I was talking to our rankings guys, and nothing about where he's going to be ranked. Obviously, they'll figure all that out later if he does reclassify. But they said there's no historical data to this. Nobody has ever only played 1 year and it not be that final year and it not be a kid who was either a specialist, that a kicker or somebody, or someone like who was playing basketball and didn't play until late in their high school career and kind of played as a junior a little and then really played as a senior. And we saw that. Kyron Lacey was that kind of guy, right? Like, he was a basketball player, and then he kind of made the shift to football. So a lot of kids may play 2 seasons, but 1, and the only season being your sophomore season, without injuries being involved, is just not something we've really seen maybe in the modern era with a guy who's ranked as a 5-star.
Yeah, I mean, so all in all, do you see this as a positive notion for LSU the way this has played out, or what's your viewpoint?
Well, I mean, he's not. I think if he had, I think the positive is that he's at Edna Carr.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes.
Edna Carr has been great to LSU. Frank Wilson's got connections galore there. If you're not at Aug, Carr is about as good as a landing spot as you can be in for LSU to feel good about things. So from that perspective, in terms of feeling good, then yes, I would say that it worked out as best in terms of where he's going to school right now as LSU could have hoped for.
Jay, how did this? What? I'm trying to think of the way to phrase this, but with the Jahkeem Stewart situation, why was this decided on so late? I guess it felt like they knew that maybe this was a possibility, and then you decide so late in the process that you can't even get him eligible to play football. When it seems like that would be something that would be on the checklist of being able to do.
I think it was quite obviously mishandled and misjudged by, the people in Jakeem's camp and those kind of steering him through this. I don't think St. Aug was wanting him to reclassify or any of that, because St. Aug hasn't reclassified any kids, let alone, you have to think, St. Aug has Rhodes Scholars. They've got Nobel Prize winners. They've got Grammy winners, all that. Like, these people haven't reclassified in school. They're not out there skipping grades. But even football-wise, if St. Aug would reclassify guys, Fournette would have reclassified. Like, we would have already reached this point. So I think it was one of those things where they thought, hey, maybe it's going to happen. Maybe this could happen. It could happen. It could happen. And worked it all the way up until what was truly the 11th hour, right? Like, just 2 days before they played on a Saturday on the first game, and on a Thursday he withdrew from school. So I think it was just one of those things where they thought it would happen and it wasn't going to. And fortunately, there were people that were working on it, knowing that, hey, look, this might not happen. Let's get some backup plans in place. And that's how he very quickly lands at a spot like getting a car. But this doesn't happen with the diocese and, the school district and the superintendent and principals of these schools and athletic directors. All of these people have to be hand in hand here to help the kid out, because the reality is, Aug, Carr, Warren Easton, you name them, they all play each other. Like,
Right.
None of them are going to be okay with him leaving Aug and just joining Carr and playing right away, or that would be happening for every team. Like, that's kind of some floodgates you don't want to open.
Right.
So you don't want any special treatment, but I think at least they were able to look out for him enough to say, hey, let's just get him into school, because the whole goal here is reclass. Well, the only way you reclassify is if you've got the credit hours, and the only way to get credit hours is to go to school. So I think that the best case scenario right now is that he's in a classroom, he's knocking out his coursework, and then you can kind of figure out the football from here, because academics was paramount if this whole thing's about reclassifying. Again, I go back to what I said at the start. You don't leave St. Aug if you don't want to reclassify. Like, there'd be no point. Just stay at St. Aug and play football and go to school. So if he is going through with reclassifying, the paramount thing is being in school and lining up your credit hours to get to whatever college it is you want to go to.
Yeah. Flipping, changing pace here with, I saw a clip that y'all put out, you put out on social media this weekend of Cade Phillips, the LSU commit, reaching 20.7 miles per hour on the football field. Just talk about him and just, what he means for the future of this defensive back room at LSU, and just, what he's looked like throughout his high school career.
He's a phenomenal athlete. He's long. It's funny. Both these guys, and DJ Pickett being the other, both these guys started out being ranked as safeties. And Charles Power, who runs our Omfrey National Director of Scouting and Rankings, had said early on, he was like, hey, man, I kind of like both these guys, and circled Cade Phillips and DJ Pickett. But he said, I think they're corners. And simultaneously, Corey Raymond had gotten here and had just turned up the heat on both of them in January, February, and said they're corners. And when they went on record, they're like, yeah, a lot of schools recruit me at safety, but Corey likes me at corner. And that kind of gave us the feel like, okay, Charles said, Corey sees what I see here. These guys are pretty legit corners. Let's rank them there. Well, what do you know? You look up and DJ Pickett's the number one corner in America. And now everyone's got him ranked at corner. And I'm telling you, Cade Phillips isn't far behind. We have him as the number 7 corner right now. He's about to go up again. I will not be surprised if they both finish as top 5 corners, if they both finish as top 32 to 40 range players. I mean, DJ's already the number 3 player in the country on 3, but Cade's stock is, for us at least, I think will continue to rise, and then you'll see it across the industry. This is a guy who plays multiple sports, and he went to the state title in Texas at a high level and was a state finalist in the long jump this past year. Now you see him out there putting up 20 miles per hour, on a return when he picked up a fumble and ran it back in a game for him this past weekend. And he played really well the week prior. And then you look at a guy like Aiden Anding up at Ruston, who they're so well coached. They've had such a great defense. You see how quickly Ahmad Bros come in, a guy who did not carry this lofty ranking that a guy like Cade Phillips does. And he's been able to come into this kind of senior year. And his jamboree, I know Aaron Dietrich, who's pretty respected up in Monroe and has seen it all up in that area, said it was one of the best jamboree performances he's ever seen. And I think that Cade Phillips went for a couple picks, some touchdowns, or at least one. But they're thinking he's going to have a monster year at Ruston. So when you talk about rebuilding the corner room, I don't think that you can have a better start than this. And I am not a rankings guy. I'm not involved. And I really hate speaking for it because the couple guys who really sit there and dedicate their lives to it for On 3, Charles and Cody, are 2 guys I've known for a long time, I'm buddies with. And I don't want to speak for them. They often will get mad when it gets back to them. And they're like, why did you say this guy was going to be ranked here? It's not true. Like, whatever. But my opinion, just kind of listening to him, is that Anding will rise over time, but that Cade Phillips and then DJ Pickett obviously are looking the part of 2 of, let's say, the top 5 corners in the country. And we're wanting to get back as fans and even media just want to see, hey, look, where's that DBU? Where's that corner play we're used to seeing? Well, this is why you bring Corey Raymond back. Yeah. And I will say that the reports of Corey Raymond being washed and his demise and all of this, as I maintained, those are very far-fetched. And I think he's proven it quite quickly here. And we'll see how Ohio State's class looks. Look, they have Devin Sanchez and Naeem Offord committed. I don't know if Offord sticks. He's a guy LSU loves too. But I think by the end of this, that LSU may be able to look up and say, we have the best cornerback class in America. And can you ask for anything more when you bring Corey Raymond back? And in year 1, he goes out and gets what would then be maybe the best 3-punch that's out there.
Yeah. Crazy that rumor even got substantiated at any point. But Shay, I want to bring you from the future back to the present. I know that Jordy sluts you out for just your recruiting knowledge, but I would like to contend that the Bengal Tiger puts out great in-season content. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the way out of LSU versus South Carolina and where you stand there.
This was one before the season that I really wanted to pick as a loss.
Oh,
but I did. Well, I did. So I loved Lenore Sellers in high school, and he was a guy we had ranked pretty high. And he was a really great runner. He's a big kid, and I just thought, look, he'll be in year 2. He'll throw the ball well, or at least, he'll have settled in, and this could, it'll be a night game over there at South Carolina, and they could be 2-0, and they could beat Kentucky, and we just look. LSU's got a whole new defensive staff, a new DC. They're putting in so many new pieces, and really a lot of the same pieces from struggle areas are the ones you're using or having to kind of shift around this year, and then you're moving on from 3 first-round picks, including the Heisman winner. And I just thought, hey, man, early in the season, it might take LSU a minute to get going. It kind of shifted for me. One, when this game became 11 o'clock. And, yeah, game day brings a little bit of extra juice to it. But I think LSU's fortunate this is not a night game. I think that stadium is one where you play there, so rarely. I mean, it's been a long time, more than a decade, since they played at South Carolina, that they're going to be hyped for it. LSU's coming to town. and that they would get, hey, look, they don't have the Heisman winner. They don't have these 2 first-round picks. They've been bad on defense. They could jump on them. Now it's 11 a.m. game. They should have lost to Old Dominion, honestly. This is not like an LSU Nichols thing. Like, Old Dominion fumbled it twice inside the 10 at the goal line, both times turning it over. They should have lost. And I think at the same time, yeah, they beat Kentucky, and that's a great win. You take any SEC win you could get, they thumped them. Is Kentucky just not the Kentuckys of the Kentucky, teams we've known? Vandegrift looked terrible in that game. Vandegrift ain't Nussmeier. Nussmeier is leading the country in touchdowns right now. So I thought there would be a dip in production on LSU's passing attack. I just did. I thought and there is, right? I mean, I guess to an extent, but There has to be a natural dip. It's like after 2019. It's like you can't be this good again. You've got to have some regression, but there hasn't been that with Nussmeier. He's gone out there and now he leads the country in touchdown passes. He's turned it over once, which I personally, I don't even count that. I don't count an interception on a last play of the game Hail Mary when you're losing type play to be anything. But he's protected the football well. It's not been in dangerous spots. And Kyron Lacey looks like a wide receiver 1. I mean, 1 year ago, we were talking about the drops. He catches everything now and gets his feet down. So the pass pro is great, which is great for South Carolina, given they have some talented D linemen. And Lenore Sellers he's going to be I believe this, a really, really good SEC quarterback. He's still young, though. This is start number 3. And it's start number 3 for Nussmeier, too. But Nussmeier's been around forever. He's played in games. He's played in big spots. And he's a better thrower, naturally, than a guy like Sellers is. Sellers is sitting at around 50% passing through a couple games. And I think for me, this is one. You keep him neutralized, running the football. Rocket Sanders the same. They don't have – no South Carolina fan will ever say, oh, we have this explosive offense. They think that, hey, look, if we can run the football and we can play some clock control and play defense, we've got a chance to win games. So I think for LSU, I'm of the opinion of I don't care if they get the run game going this weekend. If they're allowing you to throw it, or even if they're not, keep throwing it because these guys have worked out. Mason Taylor and obviously having Kyron, and then I absolutely love what I've seen from Aaron Anderson and Xavion Thomas. Just give these guys the ball and let them go do it. And I think that is one thing where this is the most obvious thing ever. If you can score more points in South Carolina, you'll win. I don't want it to be said that way, but if they can get it to a pace where they're scoring at a clip that
South Carolina can't keep up in a track meet.
You can't. No, they're not going to want to run a track meet. You saw exactly
Harbor might.
Nichols. Well, yeah, right. Nichols had 2 sustained drives of nearly 8 minutes that led to touchdowns. Like that's what you don't want. So if you can force some 3 and outs and you can figure out a way to maybe get a turnover to. I think this is a game that goes back to what most people would have presumed, and you look up and the final score is, 28. Yeah, it's 28 to 20, 20 or 24 to 14 or something, or 31 to 20. And it's like, okay, yeah, that about makes sense. And regardless of what the context of the actual game was, and I'll also say this, South Carolina's polarizing enough, and it speaks to it through their first 2 weeks, which their writers told me this, and then I've heard it from their fans and some friends, buddies who went to South Carolina. They said, I know people say this, but we are truly the most polarizing team in college football, as evidenced by, we should have lost to Old Dominion. We could go out and lose to LSU 35-3, and every fan would be like, I expected that. I knew it was coming. Or that they would go out and win on a walk-off field goal 24-21 and be like, that's just South Carolina for you. Coming up. Yeah, just coming up in the clutch here. So I think that they view it as one that could go either way. If I'm LSU, I think, how do I cut down on this yards per play? I don't care about running the football. I just don't right now, because I think that if they can throw it on South Carolina, which they should be able to, that'll be enough for this game. And yes, eventually you're going to have to run the football and sustain it. And if they can do it this weekend, great. I think the bigger thing is you can't let South Carolina and who's Rocket Sanders is their best offensive player. You can't let then Lenora Sellers run all over you. You got to be able to tackle in space, and certainly you can't let him throw all over you because he's not at that point in his career. Again, they played Old Dominion in Kentucky, and he's a 50% passer. Nussmeier is sitting at well above 70 with that touchdown to interception ratio looking very strong. So I think that a lot of people are looking for reasons and feeling reasons, and maybe rightfully so, to be nervous about this game. I think it could. I think it could be close. I'm almost leaning towards it. It could be one where LSU kind of just runs away with it.
That's surprisingly. Where I am.
Where it's like, all right, they're comfortably out there because this isn't Missouri. Like, they went to Missouri and played a day game, right? Missouri also had Luther Burden and all these guys, and they had a great quarterback, and they were just going to run up and down the field with LSU, and it was a track meet. Like, South Carolina isn't built for that. And if you're able to put up points, then you have force Lenora Sellers to throw. And as bad as everyone wants to think the DBs can be or have been, you can come up with a turnover or two somehow. So I think this is one of those games for me where that I honestly think that LSU will win by more than the spread 7. I think this will be a 7 to 10 point win for them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
If LSU doesn't beat themselves, I think that they have a great chance of walking into Columbia and walking out very, very much on the right end of history because that's
we haven't necessarily seen LSU beat themselves this year, have
right?
We?
That's
Not
what I'm saying.
yet.
I think that's the recipe. If you're South Carolina, to see if you can force the turnover, kind of keep yourself in the football game, and now you're in a dogfight. If you let LSU get comfortable, I don't see everything that it's supposed to happen should happen.
Well, and Lloyd, this is what I say too. If LSU was in a spot right now after 2 games where I'd be a lot more nervous, to your point, Lloyd, if we had seen LSU, the gunslinger out here, and he had thrown 6 touchdowns and 4 picks.
Yes.
And they had fumbled the ball twice already. Like, they forced 4 turnovers in that USC game, and all 2 of the fumbles bounced right back into the USC players' laps. One of them is when Whit Weeks is catching that and walking into the end zone. If an O-lineman doesn't make the film study move of the year to run all the way back and then get horizontal to get his hands onto Weeks and not just tackle him, but strip the ball loose for an incompletion. Like, it wasn't even a pick and then fumble. And then they had one more batted ball where Womack dove. And when he caught it, the lands on the ground and the ball bounces when it hits the ground. So that could have been a game where USC turned it over four times very easily. And they ended up turning it over none. And that's just bad breaks. So LSU hasn't been the one doing that. They've just been on the receiving end of, man, we could have capitalized and it just fell the wrong way. That doesn't happen forever either. So if this were an LSU team that was turning it over every week and all that, then I would say, yeah, like, this is scary. They better protect the football, but they haven't been that. They've been very efficient on offense. It's been week 1, those 4 turnovers, none of them went your way. You struggled at the very end on defense, and you didn't score points in the red zone, whether that be touchdowns and even a field goal instead of going for it and coming up with nothing. So I think going 5 for 5 in the red zone last week, I don't care if it's nickels, it was nice to see. And if they can replicate that to any degree, then that's big. But by no means, and I'll say this, South Carolina will tell you we don't have these explosive players. LSU's rolling out Kyron Lacey, Xavion Thomas, Aaron Anderson. Like, even without Chris Hilton, this team is so much deeper, talent-wise, skill-wise, at positions like that in South Carolina. So that's why I think that put up some points on them. And as you put it, Lloyd, I don't think South Carolina wants to get into a track meet here.
Last one here, setting up for the South Carolina game as well. No Jacoby and Guillory for LSU. Just talk about the depth in that defensive tackle room and some of the guys that you think might, step up, and how Blake Baker will get creative on defense. They talked about a 4-3 front and stuff like that. What do you expect to see?
Yeah, and obviously playing a little more of the 4-3 would be if you think that, look, we're going to have to keep an eye on Sellers and they're going to run it with Rocket Sanders or all this while these other teams were really going to throw it on you, or is that kind of what you felt might happen? I want to see the Harold Perkins impact. I do like the idea of putting Penn and Weeks and and Harold out there together, and Harold's good in coverage, so I don't think you lose much there. But obviously, everybody wants to see him get after the quarterback. And he's been in these spots before. I don't know if necessarily you call it spying this weekend, but they have played that Arkansas game or against Bryce Young or against people where he's spied, and he's been very effective. Yep. So I don't know how much he has to be tasked with keeping an eye on the Norris Sellers, but I do think that the D tackle spot is one that I go back to what Brian Kelly said. He said before the year, he said, Guillory could end up being the best player in our defense, and he could have never recorded a tackle all year. Doesn't matter. But he can eat up 2 blocks, and that opens up everything for your other D linemen, your linebackers to come through the hole, whatever it might be. And these next guys do that. And I say guys because, as Kelly said, it can't be one of them. Guillory was one of them. Now, as Bo Davis said, in rotation. So Suggs obviously can play some nose tackle. He's talked about Sean Washington. Dominic McKinley's battling this turf toe, but Jalen Lee will give him reps. He's talked about moving Paris Shand inside to D tackle, which I wonder, and remember, Gio Paez coming from Wisconsin, he came here because he was like, I was playing nose, and now I want to play DT. Well, you maybe need to move over a bit and play that spot too because you've got experience there. I don't know, but I do like the notion of putting Shand inside because he's looked good so far, and he's easily your biggest end. So with Savion playing so well, with Swinson playing well, if Womack's healthy, you've even seen Gabe Relaford play at times. Like, you've got guys that can play those edge spots. Go ahead and move a guy inside to give yourself a little more depth. But I am interested to see what I don't want to say fall off, but what is that kind of level of production or what you're able to do with Guillory versus what you're able to do with this kind of combo group of next guys.
We do this to every guest that's come on today. Give us a score prediction for LSU, South Carolina.
Oh, I don't know.
I love doing these because they mean nothing and everybody thinks so hard about them.
What did South Carolina score in Kentucky?
I think it was
31.
31-6.
It was 10-6 at half, and they rattled off a couple big plays.
Yeah, that I know Matty B went and did the film watch. I guess I didn't realize that either. He was like, this game, they were terrible.
They were terrible.
10-6 at half. I don't know. Like everybody thought they were just crushing them all game.
World beaters.
Give me 31. Give me 31-17 LSU.
That's what I said too.
That's been the most
31-17
popular
LSU.
I love that. Shut down Sandstorm. Keep cocky in the cage. LSU gets out of Columbia with a victory.
Yeah, I'd like to preface this by saying I've never gotten a score prediction correct, ever.
Perfect.
And I've
done this for quite some time. Have you ever been to South Carolina for a game?
I have not, and everybody says it's great. Would that be right? Everybody says
I haven't been either, but yeah. That's all I've heard is that it feels like an insane, like it's not an intimidating environment per se, but it's like a whole lot of fun. So I just didn't know if you'd experienced that. So
I have not.
All right. Well, one day, maybe we'll all go.
One day. And Emily's going, so I'll just get her word and I'll trust it as she's seen all the college towns. I think this is the final of the SEC teams minus OU, which she'll have to do. That she has not been to their stadium
what a
yet.
List.
So that's right. It's a bucket list. So we're moving through it. This was the final checklist, and then
Oklahoma.
Here comes Texas and OU. So
yeah. Well, if she sees Steven Garcia, tell him hello. I'm sure he's there at 5 points somewhere.
Very bummed that he was not the guest picker. I thought that would have been a lock for South Carolina to win.
He's probably gonna try to suit up and play. He's there forever.
Well, all right. Well, Shay, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you. Hope you enjoy the game tomorrow. Everybody, catch Shay at Shay Dixon on Twitter. Subscribe to the Bengal Tiger. Shay with On 3.
Great information. That we held him hostage for quite some time.
Yep. Hey, we got it past 9. What are we at?
9:13.
There we go.
Oh, and there he is.
Oh, he's still here.
31-17. Shay, thank you so much for sticking with us and hanging out. I'm sure we will have you on again. despite your best efforts. Thank you again,
The,
sir.
well, the hostage did not escape. Y'all thought I had gone
No, you're
somewhere.
still
I was just
here.
letting y'all talk.
Well, I appreciate it. Feel free to hang out as long as you like. Open door policy.
Yep.